Okay, so today we're going to start on the knees. So obviously, if you need to pad the knees here, you can. Or if you have I'm just going to use, I was doing laundry, so here's a pair of jeans. You can put something on the backs of your heels and sit down on that. Sometimes that takes some pressure out of the knees if it's just too early to just sink down onto them. So come into your version of kneeling, of a seat. And if you want to make this into a foot stretch too, you can curl the toes under and sit down on your heels like that. So I'm going to start out like that, but you can start out like this and move to having your feet just how they normally would be, or you can just skip the foot stretch altogether. So starting out in some version of kneeling, I'm going to close down the eyes and begin to listen to the breath without controlling it to begin with. Noticing if you're in this foot stretch, you might be starting to really feel it. Try to hold on for 5 more breaths, just breathing into the feet. And here's where we can start to control the breath a little bit more. Let the breath come deep into your belly. Focus on it moving into your back, into your ribs, into your shoulders, into your collarbones. Exhaling completely, squeezing with the belly button towards the spine to empty all the air out. And if you're still in that foot stretch, you can slowly inchworm your way out of it, maybe coming onto the hands for a second. Gently moving back onto your feet and sitting in your normal kneeling position. Wherever you are, ground down through the seat here, whether you're sitting on a little cushion or you're making direct contact between your sits bones and your heels. Start to feel a real heaviness here in your tailbone. Start to feel a real gravity with your breath as it moves deep into your low belly. And softly letting it leave your body on the exhales. Maybe you feel your shoulders moving down with your exhales. See if you can keep your shoulders from moving on your inhales, though. And exhale. Soften the expression of the face. You can blink the eyes open. And we're going to begin to just do a couple massages on the upper thighs with the hands. So just rubbing your thighs towards the front, towards the knees, and then back towards the hip creases. Just a couple times, stimulating blood flow. You can move down the sides of the thighs. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Just, give yourself a little bit of a thigh massage here. Stimulating blood flow into the thighs. A really important part of doing deep stretching is making sure that the muscles are warm beforehand, because the more warm they are, it's like metal, it's more pliable. And it's also safer if you're doing it and you're engaged. So just continuing that connection to the breath, massaging the thighs a couple more times. And then we're going to try, forward a little bit. You're going to take your fingertips behind you. So you can lean back on the hands if you're ready to do that. I'm not quite open enough in my shoulders yet to do that. And we're going to do a stretch for the front of the thigh. So keeping the knees together. We're going to inhale and exhale, just pull. It's funny, it's just a clenching of the glutes basically. So this is not a back bend. You're not dumping your chest forward. We're just engaging through the butt to lift it off of the heels. Keeping the knees really grounded, pressing into the toes, pressing into the shins. It should be a deep stretch for your for the fronts of your thighs. And then we'll sink back down, back to sitting forward. And we're going to take the hands and place them between the thighs and the calves. And sit up straight here. We're going to inhale, get really tall through the spine. And then on an exhale, we're just going to let the right ear fall towards the right shoulder, like our head's a pot of tea. We're pouring tea into a teacup on our right shoulder. Pause here, making sure that we're really creating length between each vertebrae of the spine. Breathe in here. And then if you want to, you can use the eyes, just use the eyes to look up at the ceiling. And then maybe your chin tilts up ever so slightly and you get a deep stretch in not just the right shoulder, but sort of the right collar or the left collarbone too. Breathe into this a few more times. See how far down your arm you can feel that stretch without going deeper. Just see how far you can be aware of your arm. Remembering to stay connected to the breath. Slowly we come out of this, moving the head through center, and then letting the left ear come towards the left shoulder. Exhaling, pausing here, figuring out how this feels. And then on an inhale, we'll use the eyes to look up towards the ceiling and the slightest tilt in the chin, making sure we stay really long through the spine. Breathe here. Feel the stretch moving down the arm. From the ear to the fingers, maybe even, you can feel a stretch. And we'll slowly move back towards center. And then we'll walk the hands in front of us and we'll take a child's pose. You can start with the hands in front of you. Or if you want to, maybe you keep the big toes together and you split the knees as wide as the mat and sit back down. Keeping the hands in front of you, breathe into the low back here. This is really good for the low back, and it's just warming into the inner thighs. Inhale here, and we'll exhale, climb the hands towards the left side of the mat. Maybe the left fingertips are off the edge of the mat, breathing into the body here, breathing into the right armpit. You can always pause and put something under the knees if you need to. Never be afraid to pause and get what you need. And we'll inhale here. And we'll exhale, stay really grounded through the hips. We'll walk the hands over to the right this time. Breathe into the left body. Expanding the belly. Letting our exhales bring our chest closer to the ground. Seeing again, how long can we feel that stretch down the length of our left body? And then we'll move the hands back to center. And we'll slowly climb, press our way up into just tabletop position. In your tabletop, maybe you just bump the hips from side to side a couple times. Just adjusting to this. And then we're going to actually walk the knees together. We're going to look down between our hands or look at our thighs if you want to. And we're going to squeeze the thighs as close together as we possibly can, like we're trying to crack open a walnut or something between our thighs. So just go ahead and engage the thighs. Maybe you start to feel sort of like a shake happen or a warmth. Just squeeze tighter and tighter. And we're going to hold this for 5 breaths to warm up the inner thighs. So beginning, inhaling, squeezing, exhaling, squeezing, inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, squeeze, exhaling. You can also engage the glutes here. Inhaling, second to last breath, exhaling. Squeeze, last breath, inhale, and exhale. You can walk the knees apart, hip width apart, and then we're going to inhale and take cat pose or cow pose. I somehow have done yoga for so many years and I always mix them up still. Grounding down through the hands, keeping the chest open and the shoulder blades resting down the back. Imagine the sandbag at your lower back, pressing your belly towards the ground. Arc the spine, looking forward, keeping the neck soft. Inhaling here, long belly. And then we'll exhale. The motion starts from the tailbone And vertebrae by vertebrae, climb into cat pose. Your Halloween cat pose. If you want to, you can walk the knees in an inch here, if that helps or changes it in a nice way. Gripping with the hands, pressing into the feet, looking towards the navel. Breathe here. Exhaling. Inhaling cat pose. Exhaling cat pose. I hope I said the right one that time. Inhale, drop the belly. Exhale, arch the belly. Looking towards the navel. Then we'll take neutral and we're going to walk. This is a little different. We're going to walk the knees about an inch apart from each other here. And then we're going to inhale and take cow pose, arcing the spine. Exhale, curl the spine, take cow pose, being mindful of the knees. Coming back to neutral, we'll walk the knees another inch apart from each other, keeping the feet directly behind like train tracks coming out from behind the knees. We'll inhale, cow pose, drop the belly, and exhale, cat pose. Notice how this feels different. Coming back to neutral, and then we're gonna walk the knees one more inch apart. You can flex the feet here if it takes some of the pressure out of the knees for you and press the inner edges of the feet into the ground. One more, inhale, cow pose, dropping the belly, exhale, cat pose. And it is gonna be a smaller cat-cow than you started with. And then we're just gonna pause here with the knees pretty far out. And we're gonna, so I'll change too so you can just see me. So the feet are flexed, the knees are wide apart, semi-wide apart, and the heels are directly below the knees. So it's, and the shins are parallel. So anyways, just walk the knees as far apart as you can, reasonably. So it shouldn't be like the deepest stretch in the whole world, but deep enough for you to feel it. I do this pose a lot, so you know, it could be like up here that you feel it. So pausing here, flexing the feet, breathing into the inner thighs is where we're trying to feel a stretch here. And if this is too much on the knees, pad them, or you can even take a really deep happy baby pose here. We're gonna sway for just about 2 breaths, swaying from hand to hand, noticing if there's a certain place where it feels a little extra like sticky, like a little deeper stretch, and pausing there. And then we will slowly pressing in the hands, using the arm strength to slowly inch the knees back towards each other. That was our little frog pose opener. We'll take another one at the end of class so you can see how your flexibility changes as you get your muscles warmed up. So then we'll take tabletop. We'll take a couple hip circles here, just drawing big circles with the hips, reversing it every time around. Let's take about 3 rounds of this on either side. Awesome. And then we're going to climb up onto the knees. We're going to clasp the hands behind us at the lower back. And inhale, pull the hands away from the back. Breathing into the chest and belly. Not quite a back bend here, but we're freeing up the shoulders. Great. And then we are going to try a little balancing move here. We're going to see if you can take the hands in front of you too, if this makes it easier. And actually, maybe that's a better place to start. With the hands on the ground, we'll take the right foot out behind us just for the first one. And then we're going to see if we can climb up onto the left knee and balance here. It's really hard. Finding a gaze point, really anchoring down through that left foot. We're going to see if we can take the right foot all the way around and possibly hold it out in front of us for just 1 breath and just step it down on the ground and walk our way into a low lunge. So really fun, challenging balance. In our low lunge, we can just rock from side to side a couple times. Breathing into the hip flexor. And then we will inhale and walk the hands back. Take our hamstring stretch, flex the right foot in front of us, taking hips directly over that back knee. Tick-tock the right toes a couple times just to really find length. As always, you can use blocks if you need to here. You can keep the right knee as bent as you need to, but just really plug the right hip into the hip socket. Then we'll walk the hands forward once again. Take our little lunge. And then we're going to inhale, plant the left hand on the ground. See if we can pull that right hand up towards the sky. Take a quick little twisted lunge, check in here. And then maybe if you want to, and again, this is just so if the day is right, maybe you do this. Maybe you try picking that left foot off the ground, coming onto the left fingertips and reach behind you with the right hand. Maybe you grab hold of the left toes. Now, making sure we're still sinking really deep into that front hip so we're not putting too much pressure on the back knee. You can always use a strap here, but just see if it's accessible today. And if it's not, that's totally normal and fine. But if it is, maybe you keep the left toes flexed for breath here. Then we come back to center. Then we're gonna walk that right foot towards the left side until maybe we're able to lay that right shin bone right on the ground or the right calf right below the right shin bone. And we'll come into pigeon pose. Flexing the right foot. As always, you can walk that right heel in as close as you need to the left hip to make this like a comfortable enough to stay in, because we're going to stay in it for about 5 breaths to give ourselves just a chance to open into the super deep hip stretch. We're going to keep that left foot pressing into the ground so intensely, anchoring us. And start on the fingertips and rock a bit from side to side. Awesome. And then maybe walk your hands farther forward. If you're feeling it today, I'm just offering all the things. You don't have to go here, but maybe you climb onto the forearms in pigeon pose, staying mindful always of the knee, noticing where you feel the stretch in your hip. Maybe it's in your low back, and maybe it is in your inner thigh too. Just a few more breaths here. Softening the expression on the face. And then we'll inhale, walk the hands back in. Walk the back knee in towards us. Come up off of the right knee. And we'll take a couple hip circles, fire hydrant style circles, reversing directions, maybe wiggling the right ankle around a little bit. Get creative here. Just do whatever you feel like doing. And then we'll pause with that right foot out behind us. In tabletop, one more option for a balance pose. I'll swivel so it's a little easier to see. So pausing here, we're going to bend the right knee, reach behind us with the left hand and see if we can catch hold of the right toes or even the right top of the foot. You can grab from the inner or the outer edge of the foot, whatever is easiest, flexing the toes, flexing the foot, and kick the foot into the hand to help us really get a deep stretch here. And then we'll come out of this. You can always use a strap there, and maybe it's just not the day for it, and that's always fine too. And we're going to come up onto our knees once again, and you can start on your hands and knees if you want to, but we're going to take the left foot out this time. Seeing if we can balance on the right knee. Wow, this is night and day, my balance here. Maybe it is for you too. And then we're going to see if we can Slowly bring the left foot out in front of us without it ever touching the ground, balancing on the right knee. And then we'll come into a low lunge on the left side. Walking the hands forward. Rocking from side to side, low lunge. You can make this lizard if you want to. That's always just a given. If you want to make it lizard, you can walk the left toes off the mat and climb off of the right knee, curling the right toes under. Me personally, I think I'm going to stay in low lunge. But always ask yourself, well, is this stretching low lunge what I want to do? I want lizard. And if you want lizard, take lizard. Feeling the stretch in the hip flexors, sinking the hips forward and making sure that front knee is behind or at least directly over the front ankle. And then we'll inhale, walk the hands back, come onto the heel of the front foot, pull that left hip into the hip socket. Inhale and lengthen through the spine. Exhale, maybe bend over that left leg, tick-tocking the toes a couple times. Breathe into the back, keep it nice and straight. Softening through the face. Take this as deep as it wants to go. If you keep the left knee super bent, maybe you're on blocks. If you're even up here balancing, it's your journey. Then we're going to walk the hands forward once again. We'll plant the right fingers down, right palm down, and inhale, pull that left hand up towards the sky, twisting the chest towards the left side of the room, the left leg. We'll inhale and look up towards that left hand, stretching the arms way far apart from each other, creating space between each vertebrae of the spine. And then we will let that left hand come back towards the back of the room, reach the hand towards the back of the room. And then maybe if you want to try this, you might see if we can lift that right foot off the ground and reach the hand and the foot towards each other. And maybe we catch hold of the right toes, or maybe we have a strap looped around the foot and we're holding onto the strap and pulling the foot in towards us. Keeping the weight moving forward here, moving it into the front foot to make sure that we're not putting all our weight into that fore back knee. Breathe into this wherever you are. And maybe you're just pulling your foot off the ground, and that's its own challenge. Then we'll come out of this, take both hands to the ground and walk the left toes towards the right side of the mat. And maybe you lay that left shin bone right down on the ground, keeping the foot flexed. We'll inhale and get tall. And then we'll exhale and walk the hands forward. And maybe you do come right onto the forearms. If this is not quite deep enough for you, you can always just increase the stretch by walking the back knee farther back towards the back of the room. Making sure that we're pretty evenly distributing our weight here in both hips. Breathing into the body here. Using the breath as a tool to help us relax into deep stretches. Softening, noticing the difference between the right and the left sides. And then we'll inhale, crawl up onto the hands, walk the back knee in, and take the left foot out behind you, extend it. Take a couple fire hydrant circles in either direction. Just doing some like intuitive movement here. It might look weird, but might feel good. And then we'll take that left foot out behind us, put the weight into the left hand. See if we can bend the left knee. And now I'll switch once again so that you can see what I'm doing. We'll flex the left toes, bend the left knee, reach behind us with the right hand, and see if we can grab either from the inside or the outside of the left foot. See if we can grab the left foot, and if we can, Kick the left foot into the right hand. Bound one-legged table. Breathing into the shoulder opening. Again, you can always use the strap here. And then we will slowly release. And come into classic table. And then we're going to walk the knees apart and take a wide-legged child's pose once again with the big toes touching. Just for a breath or two. And we'll crawl back up onto the hands, come onto the butt, spread the heels away from each other, flex the feet or point the toes, whichever you decide, just make sure that you stay active through the feet. We'll inhale and get tall here, and we'll exhale, crawl the hands forward, keeping the feet super flexed or super pointed, heels digging into the ground. You can keep the knees as bent as they need to be, and sway from side to side here. And normally I'm like, keep the feet perfectly pointing up towards the ceiling. But actually this time, as you move towards the left foot, maybe you do allow the right toes to come towards the ground. And as you move towards the right toes, maybe you do let the left toes come towards the ground. Just being mindful of the knees. Just try it a couple times, see if you like it. Maybe you even try to lay the whole inner side of one leg down as you move towards the other leg. Sort of like a halfway. This is for if your legs are pretty wide apart, but I guess you can still do it also if the legs are a little closer. But don't be too judgy if your hip is coming off the ground. More of a freedom, wide-legged fold practice today. Great, and then we will take the legs together, squeeze the knees into the chest for just a breath. We'll come onto the hands and knees. And now we're going to take frog again, but this time we're going to go a little bit deeper than we did the first time, maybe. Making sure the knees are padded if they need to be. We will walk the knees farther and farther apart, keeping the shins parallel and directly behind the knees. So it's a perfect straight line out from the knees. Parallel with the edges of the mat. And then once you find just about as deep as you feel like you can go, maybe you let your hips sit back a little bit. And maybe if this is actually not incredibly intense for you, maybe you climb onto the forearms, or maybe if you're low enough, you climb onto the forearms anyways. And we're going to stay here for 5 breaths, but always feel free to climb out if it's just too intense on the knees or if it's just too intense in general. So we're going to take our 5 breaths in whatever inner thigh stretch you choose here. Could be the wide-legged fold again. So we're going to inhale, exhale, inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, keeping those feet nice and flexed like a frog, exhaling, inhaling, exhaling. We're on the final breath, inhaling, and exhaling. Try to soften the expression of the face as we climb back onto the hands as we move to the forearms. And we're gonna like we're moving through molasses, move the knees towards each other, move the feet towards each other. Do this negotiation really slowly so you don't shock all your muscles. It's like doing a deep stretch like that and then just snapping your knees back together is like going from a full sprint to just laying on the ground. And then once you're back to center, I'm going to take a couple more knee circles. And then we're going to find a wall or a table or a couch or something to prop our feet up against. And instead of shavasana today, we're going to take kind of a fun version of the legs up the wall. So I'll do it first so you can see what it is. But we're going to scoot the butt as close to the wall as we can. Lay down on the back. And then we're just going to let we'll pause here for a moment. I'll narrate pausing for a moment, but then we're just going to let gravity help us walk the heels down the wall apart from each other, taking a wider and wider view of the legs. And we're going to be here for about a minute. So, of course, if it's too intense, you can come out and just take the legs up the wall. But we're just going to let gravity do all the work here and just see how deep exactly we're going to get when we let gravity take the wheel. So find your wall or your couch or whatever you're going to use to prop your legs up against. And begin and legs up the wall. Once your legs are up the wall, I want you to take your hands to your low belly and come back to the breath here, because that's what yoga is all about. We're going to send deep breaths into the belly, exhaling and feeling the hands move in towards the spine with every exhale. Imagine that your hands are like a raft on the water. And then slowly let the heels come apart and allow gravity to just take them farther and farther apart, moving down on either side. So it's like you're drawing a rainbow on the wall, but starting in the middle. And then we're going to be here for 1 minute. So I'm going to make sure that we're good in 1 minute. Of course, you can come out if you need to. But let's just settle in. Softening any expression on the face. Closing the eyes if we want to. Breathing into the legs, maybe keeping the feet flexed if that helps. Just really getting heavy through the back. Remembering how we got heavy through the tailbone in the beginning when we were on our knees. And maybe you even want to take your hands to your knees while you're here and give them a little rub. It's just so choose your own adventure. We're almost there. Just about another few breaths. Letting your heels just fall apart as much as they can or want to. And then we're going to slowly take the hands to either sides of the legs. Or if you want to use your muscles to this, you can. And we'll walk the heels back in towards each other until they're both up the wall. And we're in that like L shape with the heels at the wall that we started in. Once you reach your feet being up the wall again, we're going to walk the feet down so that our knees are bent and the soles of our feet are pressing into the wall. And then from here, maybe we take the knees into the chest and give ourselves a nice big hug here. Taking a deep breath in, feeling the belly pressing into the thighs. And exhale, maybe you sigh it out through the mouth. 2 more like that. Inhaling. And exhaling, sigh it out. 1 more breath in. And this time as you exhale, make a shh sound. So shh. And then we'll slowly climb back into our seat. Meet with our hands at heart center. Take your time. Close the eyes once you reach your seat. Then we'll take 1 more inhale, take the hands overhead. A big good morning stretch here. And we'll exhale, take the hands to heart center. Thank you for practicing with me today. Namaste.
Namaste.